Do you like elves? Do you like thick elves? And I mean really, really thick elves? Then do I have a show for you. Plus Size Elf is in the summer 2024 anime season, a short series that is definitely taking that whole kind of Anatori vibe going on with the whole exercising and stuff, with some edgy element, some fantasy element, all kind of mixing it together for a barely animated comedy series to check out. But I've watched the first 2 episodes of the series, and I'm here to give my first impressions on it, so let's just jump into it. Plus Size Elf opens up with Tomoatsu, and he works at this company that does a lot of diet and bodywork therapy. Well, one day, this one girl shows up, and she's fully clothed and covered up, and she wants some help with her diet. And so he takes her to the back, does a little bit of analysis, gives her a massage. She really enjoys massage, but at some point, this beanie on her head falls off, and it reveals that she is actually an elf. He panics at first, but then she explains the fact that, yes, she traveled from another world through this portal. At first, he thinks this to invade, but no, she just wants to come there to have the food that's in our world, because from her world, they just have like vegetables, no spices or anything. But here, we have fried potatoes, we have French fries, and she loves French fries. But yes, the unfortunate thing is that she can't return to her world because the portal is really simple. You just go there, it's an automatic door, you just walk through it, but it has a weight checker. And if your weight doesn't match when you came through it, you can't go back. So she has to lose some weight. So he puts her this whole kind of diet and exercise routine. She's really upset because he limits that she can't have any fried potatoes, which is like torture to her. But eventually she loses her weight. She's able to return home, only for her to come back and start eating potatoes again. Following this, we get to meet a dark elf that works at a convenience store. Her whole thing is that dark elves, when they use their magic, they adorn some sort of magic armor. And yes, her butt's a little bigger than normal because of the food there. And so she can't wear her skimpy outfit whenever she casts her spell, thus reducing the effectiveness of her spells. So in order to gain her power back, she has to do squats and stuff. And the third character that we meet is like a human mandrake plant creature lady, and she's got this massive flower on her head that's continuously growing because of the fertilizer and the weather in this world. And so it's kind of off balancing her, and he helps her out with her brace. And that's kind of the concept so far with the series. Basically different monster girls that are coming from another world, and this character who's again a diet and therapy type of instructor is kind of helping them with their issues. And yes, most of them seem like they're just going to be super thick, and they need to get rid of a little bit of thickness. So my thoughts on Plus Size Elf. So far, this show is okay. It's an enjoyable show. It's got that smile that comes to me. It's got some good edgy in here. It's showing some good shots. If you like like I said, ultra thick type of stuff here, that's what we're going for. We're not going for thick. We're going for ultra thick. These girls got some chub on them. I like the fact that in the second episode, they literally make fun of anybody that's watching the show, or obviously it's from a manga, so anybody that was reading the manga, I'm sure it was done there as well. But this idea that suddenly out of nowhere, you have the elf and the dark elf, which in typical fantasy don't like each other. I like how they have like these petty insults back and forth. Like the dark elves are like, they're always late. And the regular elves, and it's just a really stupid kind of spat back and forth. But at some point, they start making fun of each other's chunk. Like the fact that the elf has like this, she called her a snake that has eaten too much, so it's got a bloated stomach. And then from the other direction to the dark elf, she's like, yeah, your butt looks like these huge, massive dumplings. And they're making fun of each other, and so they have like this little bit of an issue with, you know, their body type and being insulted about their body type. And so he just blurts out of nowhere saying, oh, it's okay. There's a lot of men out there. You're beautiful the way you are. There's a lot of men out there that like a little bit of meat on the bones. And they immediately turn and they look disgusted. Like, wait, so you like a snake that looks like it's eaten too much? Wait, you like the dumpling butt? It's kind of funny to kind of be that much on the nose on the idea that, yes, that's who's reading this, that's who's watching this, is those that like the thick. I will admit, me personally, it's a bit too much thick for me for an anime. I mean, I don't mind body types in real life, but in anime, I don't typically go for like the overly sized chunk, but it's fine. It's got its own appeal there. All body types need love, right? But yeah, a lot of my enjoyment for this show is really coming from like the body comedy that's kind of coming from it. Obviously, the idea of them being chunky and a little bit upset about their weight and trying to work it off. And obviously the back and forth between, you know, counting your calories and not doing so well at it. It's very much accepting what it's going for here. And it's the idea of, well, like they open up the show with the idea that the world itself is full of stresses and it's full of junk food, calories. And so a lot of people will just consume a lot of calories, which is funny because it's not really kind of painted that way for these characters so far. The elf just likes potatoes. He likes fried potatoes, likes grease. He has a t-shirt that says, I love grease. With the dark elf, it didn't really imply what her thing is. I think it's just mostly the fact that she's working at this convenience store and she's constantly just staying there. And she's not moving around, she's not exercising. So it's kind of just implying there that she's just not active. And with the plant lady, it's just that she's gotten too much sun. And she doesn't really know how to exercise it. So it's really a case of just, wear a parasol, and there you go. Your problem solved. It hasn't really gotten to the basis of what it opened up with, which is just stress eating. So it's kind of funny in that regard, but it is kind of funny to find out that, yes, they can't return home because their weight has to match when they came through the portal. I'll be interested to see the other characters. It's so far, this series is kind of opening up kind of like a mixture between, like I said earlier, Anatori, which for those who don't know what it is, Anatori is basically just a show about cute girls doing exercises. And yes, very revealing positions where the camera's at. Not to this level with like ecchi, because this one's definitely showing the ecchi. For those that don't know, yes, High Dive, who is streaming this series, at least in North America and some other regions, they do have the uncensored version. There is, I think, 2, maybe 3. I think the third listing might just be an exclusivity, but there's at least 2 versions, and they got the uncensored version. So, yes, full on showing the dots and everything on the chest and all that kind of stuff. So if you like ecchi, it's got it here. But at the same time, if you don't like nudity, you might go somewhere else. I don't think that High Dive has the censored version. I think they just have strictly the uncensored version. But you might be able to find it elsewhere. I'm not sure. Typically, a lot of sites don't care to have the censored version if they have an uncensored version. But it's all out there. It's showing everything. And for that reason alone, chef kiss. Now, let's get into my biggest negative that I have for the show, and that it is not the greatest looking show. Mostly from an animated standpoint, this show barely moves. There's a couple shots where you might see a couple frames of a character in motion, but for the most part, it's mostly just stills that are panned in and out. This show, I would probably argue 98% of it is just a still that is being panned. This show is barely moving. And that's the unfortunate thing. Second episode was a lot better. Like, they did have a lot of animation in the second episode, but the first episode especially was just mostly just still shots. They were good still shots. Again, if you're definitely for the chunky type, it's definitely some good still shots, and the ecchi is definitely there, but it just doesn't really have much motion to it, so it doesn't feel very much so alive. It's kind of one of those areas where why bother being an anime? It's sort of like the same situation as Way of the House Husband. That show just doesn't move. It's just mainly just manga panels that are colored. And yes, the voice work over it. A lot of the comedy in the show so far has been pretty solid. I like the whole aspect of early on, he just thinks that they're going to be invaded by the elves, and it just turns out she just wants potatoes. Again, kind of the aspect of her kind of being upset about having to give up her fried potatoes, only to immediately come back and just start gorging herself again. I think the whole routine with the Dark Elf is probably one of my favorite segments, because again, it's just like the two of them just throwing like the most petty insults at each other, and then just like her falling over, her butt being exposed. I think the entire time that the therapist is just working for the elf and trying to torture her, it was really goofy. And yes, just the idea that her bottom is getting so chunky that she ruins her outfit and she can't cast spells properly. It was goofy. I think the Dark Elf really does show me like a lot of the potential that the comedy itself has. But again, I will admit that besides maybe the Dark Elf segment, the rest of it was okay. Like, it wasn't really anything to kind of write home about. The comedy itself wasn't just kind of hitting all the time. And again, as per usual, comedy is subjective. Some people find this stuff a lot more funny than other people. That's just my point of view. I think it'll really shine once we get some more character in there, because obviously it shows that with the chemistry between the different monster girls, it could be really good. This definitely has kind of a feel like similar to that Anatori thing of a monster girl type of show. Something like a Monster Musume or something like that, going strictly on the concept of introducing a lot of different monster girls. I think we have a Cyclops. I think they already hinted at the idea of the ogre showing up. Dragons, all this kind of stuff they're going to be bringing in, and obviously he's going to have to figure out how to fix them. There was the other show, which was the Monster Girl Doctor. That's kind of similar to this, where we have a specialist who has to figure out how to help the girls with their weight, because they're monster girls. He doesn't know their anatomy. The main key one was the plant girl. He just doesn't know about their anatomy. He doesn't know how to help them lose weight because they're not technically human. So whatever thing that he does might not work for her. So he has to get with the elf and ask her, and she seems really smart about the monster girls, so I'm assuming that she's going to probably help him with all these different situations. I think of all the characters they've shown so far, probably the dragon one's the one I'm most curious about, seeing what they end up doing with her. I'm assuming each one of them is going to have a different issue that he has to help him out with. So far, the main character's okay. For a show like this, they typically are pretty blank protagonists. I did hate him a lot when the episode first opened up and the coworker was trying to ask him out for drinks, and he's like, "Oh, she gets really clingy when we drink." And it's like, really, dude? Do they have to all be like this? Just accept it. What is so wrong? Elf is probably the most fun. She's just absolutely dorky and just wants to eat junk food. She was a lot of fun. Like I said, the dark elf and her are just perfect to each other. The plant lady, she was okay. Just a MILF type character, very soft spoken. Nothing really there. So I'm hoping the other characters that get introduced have a little bit more spunk to them, I guess. But yeah, overall, it's enjoyable. At the same time, animation kind of sucks. It doesn't look that great. Besides the ecchi, the ecchi's there. It's really good. Again, uncensored, so that's a big plus for it as well. The comedy is kind of hit and miss here and there, but it's got some promise, and I'm looking forward to the rest of it. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this thick impressions of Plus Size Elf. If you did, make sure to hit that like button down below, comment. Let me know what you think of the series so far if you're going to be checking it out. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top lists. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you like this content and you want to support the channel more, I have Patreon link, tips, links, to the membership below. Greatly appreciate it, it does. And y'all take care.